Welcome, dogs. Get your goggles, get your tightest lycra tri-suit, put on those compression socks. Why be good at one sport if you can be shit at three? This is the Triathlon Mockery podcast. Hoi, dogs. Here we are back in the game. Jody did Man Chattanooga, and I was busy with some apples over the weekend, but we're back in the game with a new podcast. Jody, how's it going, mate?
Great, mate. Best race of my career. 7th place at Chattanooga and pumped.
Have you, before we get into the details, so this week's podcast, we're going to talk about Man Chattanooga. We're going to talk about some things we've seen on Strava in correlation to Ironman Barcelona. We'll be talking about, what topic did you have again? Friendship and racing. Do you have the same killer instinct if you're racing friends?
Exactly, yeah.
And then we're going to think of some bullshit buster, and then maybe an Instagram post of the week. We'll see what flies along. But first, have you got any highs and lows, mate?
Yeah, I've got a high, mate, from today. We were doing a session with Techno. He was pacing us on the bike. We had the absolute tunes pumping. You know, the one of the ones that you introduced me to, the Tajade art. He's a Dutch techno artist, isn't he? And it was his set from Wildeburg Festival 2023. And we had him absolutely pumping. It was like 42 minutes it took us once we started, from like the beginning to the end of the session, running around the park, and had the best bit of Wildeburg pumping for 42 minutes, and even got people commenting afterwards saying, "God, I like the music." Some of the people said.
Who was saying that? Who was saying that?
Some lad, I don't know. He was with his missus. He's probably about 25, 30, something like that.
And he was in the park.
Yeah, he was in the park, and then even some woman who was probably about, she must have been in her 60s, commented on it and said out, and she went, "My boy," she went, "Blimey," she goes, "You boys run fast, don't you? How many laps are you doing round there, my boy?" Said, "Oh, we just did 8 laps." She went, "God," she went, 8 laps. She went, Do it take a lot of training to get like that?"
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
But if you're curious, so I introduced Joe to the Dutch techno scene when we were at the campsite. So I've got a very, very wide mixture of music taste. But this is the Dutch techno, and I would say at first, Joe, you had to touch the water and feel what it was like. But you're absolutely loving it, aren't you?
Yeah, for a set for training, I think it's like perfect, because the mixes carry on really well from each other, don't they? There's no let up in it, and then it just I don't know, it just flows really good, and it just gets you in the zone, doesn't it? Especially if you've got like a tempo effort threshold, or like even if you're doing like VO max sessions, do you know what I mean? Like reps, like it's quite good, isn't it? Basically, that festival one, I'd say if you've got a session that's about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, the last hour and 20 minutes.
Or even 2 hours, because you start out with the warm-up ride, but the set gets really great into like...
Yeah, I started it an hour in, so I had an hour and 20 minutes of it.
Now, of course, this sounds like a tease if you're listening to this, but I'll share the link of this festival, of this mixtape. It's a 2-hour mixtape.
And do you know what the even better thing is? The even better thing is as well, Tom, it's free, isn't it? Because you can listen to it on SoundCloud for free. You don't even have to pay for premium. So you get all these mixes. Exactly. You're not even paying anything.
Just like our podcast, it's free. And let us know what you think of this mixtape, because I'm really curious what the average triathlete will think of this mixtape. But it's nice, it's dancey, it is old school, but with some pumping beats, techno beats under it. It is flipping goofy.
And it's free, as Tom says, and like he says, we want to give this podcast to you for free, but don't worry, guys. We're skint, but we're still putting the effort in.
We're skint, but we're putting the effort in.
Yeah.
So that was your high. That's a good high, though.
That was a good high, yeah. Like, I couldn't believe it. People commenting and saying we're running fast. We don't normally get that. And do you know what the annoying thing is as well? Would this piss you off? You could say this is a bit of a low at the same time as well, right? So I'm running with my mate Jacob. We're both running the same pace, or say next to each other. We're lapping our watches at the same time. Like, mine's programmed, onto the Garmin. I put the session in. So on the speaker, it's so good because it gives you a little heads up when you get to the end of each bit, saying interval 1 kilometer about to start. And then as soon as it gets to 0, it says interval started, like that. And then when you get to the end, it tells you. 1 kilometer completed, rest 1 minute. Literally telling you this over
Mm-hmm.
the speaker. You don't even have to worry. So anyway, he's lapping his watch at the same pace as me. And my watch is doing me over 3 to 4 seconds a kilometre because his is coming up with splits that are like 3 to 4 seconds a K quicker for the kilometre. But then mine was having it obviously is a lot slower. But then when we compared the average pace at the end, there was only like 1 second a kilometre difference between us. So mine would obviously be having the recoveries as a faster pace. So it looks like on Strava, I'm getting dropped on the intervals and then just putting like a slight effort in on the recoveries to catch back up. And
That
I'm
is,
like, that fucking sucks. Like,
you
I want,
normally get that on a track if you're running laps that you're like 3-4 seconds a K faster than you
yeah. And
actually
I'm
are.
like, I want that. I want mine to show me running faster for the intervals because Jacob goes, oh, it's not bad, I guess, that it levels it out, but it's a bit of the wrong way round because you want the intervals to be a bit faster, don't you, than the Ks? I was like,
You
yeah,
do actually. You do
I'm getting
actually.
screwed.
I wouldn't mind with. I know that Richard Murray's got a couple of watches like that. That are just they're clicking really fast.
Oh,
I think a K on them watches is something like 940 meters in real life.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I remember in COVID, he was doing all the challenges, wasn't he? The 1,500 meter, 4 minute mile, and basically off the bike for 1,500, 13 minutes 5K. It's like if there's any virtual races again, I will pay well over the odds for Richard Murray's watch. Like if anyone can get hold of that for me, send it to me
You
because I
don't
want to.
think at the time he definitely ran a 13-minute 40 or 13 minutes
Sure.
5K?
No, I don't think so, mate. I think that was like when you looked at the data on the bottom of the screen and on the YouTube, it was like the first 400 meters, and one of them was like 53 seconds. Now, unless his name's Jakob Ingebrigtsen, I don't.
I've recently checked. It's not.
Yeah, he's like
Um,
starting off a 5K against like Cheptegei. And like Richard Murray's ahead after 400 meters because he opens in a 59-second first 400 for them. Like, like, if it seems too good to be true, it probably fucking
in
is.
in a solo 5K park run, COVID
Yeah,
park run.
yeah, yeah,
That is nuts. Imagine what he could do in a full stadium during like a Diamond League.
yeah. But it depends what watch he's got on, though, doesn't it? Because
Does
he would
it?
do a really quick time in the Diamond League, but he'd have to stop on 5K on his watch. That's the thing. Like if he's out, because
And
can
then
you remember?
people would be like, "You've got another lap to go, mate."
I know people from Norwich that when there was the 5K races, like they had them virtual races, didn't they, and stuff where you
Hmm.
could do it from home. They were doing 5K TTs, right? And how fucking sad is this? They were running to 5K on their watch, so they were doing like 12 laps because obviously the watches were used to be terrible, didn't they, on the track? So
Yeah.
like 5K would come up at about 12 instead of 12 and a half laps, and they would try and palm it off as a PB because the watch says 5K, and it's like that's crazy.
I've seen crazy shit during COVID, like people doing A to B 5K runs,
People riding
downhill
around
runs.
Norfolk during lockdown, like
I,
there was
I
some real sons
this
of
lad,
bitches.
this lad did something like they were allowed once a day, and he did something like a 300K ride.
Allowed out
What?
once a day and he rode 200 miles. Like some crazy fucking shit going down in COVID. Even the biggest crazy thing was how many people came out of COVID. Like before, they were like Houdini, mate. You didn't see them beforehand. They came out of COVID, and all of a sudden they're getting world class results. Now tell me where that fucking came from. I reckon they went on a trip to Mexico, mate. Like,
I think you need a bit more than that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Hey, I've got a low. I've actually got two lows. One of them might be a high, but you can decide. So first of all, I was at the pool last week, and had forgotten my towel. But luckily, when I was in the changing room, so the changing rooms are all empty. So you get into the pool, you go to the changing rooms, and then you put all your stuff either in a locker or you take them with you, right?
yeah.
So there was this nice folded towel was on there, like on one of these cabinets. It was laying around there, and I was there like skin naked, no towel. I had like my swim pants on. I was thinking, I've forgotten my towel. I could do with one. So I headed over there, and I picked that towel, and I was about to like dry
You didn't
myself
get
up,
busted.
and then someone came in, and he said like, "Hey man, that's my towel," and I was like, "Really? I've got the same one." And then he said something like, "Really? I bought this one in Langkawi," something like that. He bought it somewhere in Asia. I don't even know where. I was like,
And you
that's
said,
a
me too.
coincidence. Sorry?
Me too. When were you there? I was Langkawi, like summer of 18.
It was just it was so awkward because it was so obvious what I was doing there.
You know what? Sometimes when I go to the pool, or quite often, I'd say 50% of the time, I don't have a towel because, like, they give you a towel at David Lloyd if you're a premium member, but for some reason, Techno's not premium, but they like him, so they give him a towel all the time. And then whenever I ask for a towel, they say no, you're not premium. So I'm like, all right, but you can borrow one for £1.50, and I'm like, oh fuck that, I'll just use the hair dryers. So I end up standing there in the in the shower, or not in the shower, like in the change rooms. I've got two hair dryers like on my body, like drying myself off. But then occasionally, when there's a lot of people there, if you're there in an evening and people like leave their towels and a drink bottle on like these little tiles, which are like in between like the saunas and the pools. So I'm like looking, and if I see one that I think's fresh for the taking, I'll quickly take it and go. But luckily, I haven't been busted yet like that, because that would be pretty embarrassing. I just quickly get it, go into the change rooms and jump into the shower, and then it's like they don't know, because they're all like they're all the same towels.
Exactly. Normally they're all the same towels, and this one looked like it just came from like some sort of Costco, like a big shop or whatever, and everyone's got the same. So
How old was the guy?
And 30s.
Was he like fit, or was he not like fit looking?
Medium, but it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't change the towel.
But it changes the fact that whether or not he's gonna like hurt you because you've just tried to fucking steal his towel.
No, but I was really confused, Joe. I thought I had the same towel.
Yeah, and he's like, when did you go to Langkawi?
I didn't even know where it was. It was somewhere in Asia, and I said like, "Oh, mine just really looks like it." But this was like this hand woven thing. Anyway,
it would have been really soft as well. I reckon that it would have been premium, mate. That.
So this morning, I went down to the track at 8 a.m. I was 8 a.m. I was on the track. That's pretty unusual, isn't it?
I don't think I've ever been on the track at 8 o'clock in my life. Like, and I'm not even joking. I don't ever think I've started a session at 8 o'clock
for a VO2 max session. Do you think that's crazy?
Yeah, like I don't think I've ever done that. I do remember doing mile reps when I used to work at the triathlon shop in Norwich on a Saturday by myself, and I was having to do it like start the warm up at like 6:30 in the morning. That was like pretty grim. Like
that is pretty grim. Yeah. Now there's like 3 guys in Amsterdam that I coach, and we want to do more sessions together, but obviously they got to go to work, and I had to do some stuff today as well. So I said, all right, let's go to the track, 8 a.m. The alarm went off. I felt rough as anything.
What time did you set your alarm then? Talk us through like
7.
What time did you set?
So set the alarm at 7.
You only set it an hour before, and you were going to like, and you were expecting to like pump it like an hour later.
That is grim, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I woke up, quickly had 2 sandwiches with peanut butter and one with honey. I had one of these the shots that I'm busy with. So I got my I was flipping pump, babe.
Did you have a coffee?
2 coffee, a double espresso. I was flipping pumping. So I headed down to the track, which is still like a 20 minute bike ride. But then my body is always a bit, if it's early in the morning, you got to go to the toilet, right?
Oh God, yeah. Did you not go to the toilet then before you left? So
I did at home, but because it's like it's so not used to what the hell was going on that it was still there was still
more in there. I thought you were going to go back to bed for another couple of hours, so it wasn't ready to let yourself out.
There was more left in the pipe.
Yeah.
So I did like a warm up at 8 a.m. Did like 2.5 Ks, and I felt like, all right, I'm 100% sure. Like I need to go. I need to go now. So you had this athletics club has got a building, with toilets, and there was someone in there that was like cleaning or something. So I thought like, oh, my saving angel. So I ran up to the building and I knocked on the windows, and this is basically the building from the athletics club itself. So I knocked on the windows and said, so he came up to me and he looked a bit like he's never done sports in his life before, and he said, sorry, can I help you with something? And I said, yeah, can I please quickly use the toilet? And he said, nope. So I said, why? He said, I'm closed. And I said, yeah, I understand that you're closed, but you're here and like I've got an emergency situation, mate. Like we're in the middle of city center Amsterdam, and I got to do something. Like you got to do what you got to do. And he said, it's not my problem. I can't help you.
What, he said that even though he was actually in the toilet, so like he could have literally just let you come in and go.
Mate, exactly. Absolutely nuts. So I said, well,
you were like, well, I'm just going to have to do it here then.
No, I said to him, Have you ever been on some early morning runs in your life before? And he said, no. And I'm not too interested into it either. I said, well, if you start running, you haven't been to the toilet. I said, mate, I haven't even started the session and I'm absolutely breaking the sweats. Like, you got to understand this is an emergency situation. And he said,
He
sorry,
said,
I honestly not going to help you. So I ran down to a hotel, went inside the hotel, and then I started the session. But I did 8x800s at 315 to 320k pace. But mine good, mate. During the warm up, my heart rate was 150 because I had to go.
so he said to him, Have you ever run in the morning? No. Have you ever had the feeling where you're holding a poo in and it's almost touching your run shorts? No. Have you ever had the feeling when you go to the toilet, you can see it, but there's a guy that won't let you use it? No. Okay. Well, I'm ticking the box of all fucking free, mate.
Like, I don't know if you understand how serious this situation actually is if you're running and you have to
Mate,
go.
I had to go. It reminds me of one time when I was running through Norwich, and it was in the evening. I was running, doing a city centre run, and I remember like there was like I got to the point where I was absolutely dying for a poo, and I'm sweating and I'm holding it in, and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? Because I know where I am in the city, and there is literally nowhere. There's no restaurants near me. There's no toilets anywhere. Like, and I know I can't make it. And there's cars going past on this main road, and I'm fucking worried because I'm thinking I might have to shit myself here, and like that is going to be really, really embarrassing. But I honestly don't know what to do. And it was basically I'm about 5k away from home, so it's not like I can like get back. I can't nurse it home. Like it's too late for that. This has just come on, and I saw these bushes. And there's not like a bush that you can run in. It's literally just some bushes that like would shelter you from either the road or the houses. So you've got to take your mind on what do you want to be seen by. Do you want to shelter yourself from a house, but a passing car, bear in mind it's the main road, will see you squatting and doing a dump? Or do you want to take your chance and do it on the other side of a bush and you'll be sheltered from the road, but if someone opens their curtains or happens to look out the window, they will see you squatting and doing a dump. Like, what is your choice?
But
So I had to go. I
there's
had to go, mate.
honestly, mate, there's nothing more vulnerable than a
Oh,
grown-up human being that I was standing there in his door, like absolutely shivering and shaking, like a young dog that is not allowed to go, and it's just so vulnerable. Don't you
I
think?
was vulnerable, yeah. But afterwards, I felt like I'd won the lottery afterwards. I was like, oh my God, I feel like a new person. Like, that
Yeah,
was so close. I would have been in a
like
real bad situation.
a week ago, I had the same where boom, out of the blue, it got so bad that I had to hold like a pole on the side of the street to like fight stomach cramps. I was literally there like
You had it with Martin Van Riel, didn't you, as well, when you went on a run in Girona, I remember, like a while ago, didn't you?
so bad that I had to grab something on the street to hold myself because I was
Oh,
mine good. Yeah, it is bad.
that's why it's good when I go running on the trails and that, because not only is there two toilets, public toilets on them, you're
Would
also on the
you
trails, so there's loads of opportunity. So worst case scenario, you're absolutely fine.
would you think there's like a market for like city runners? Because you've got a lot of runners in the middle of the city center, like for example New York City or London or in the city center of Amsterdam, something like a sports diaper, which you can wear under your run tights. You don't have to worry about anything. You can just like flip and kill the
Hey,
session. No,
not just for city runners. I reckon you could sell that to triathletes and an Ironman or marathon runners.
yeah, you could. You
Like, have
could.
you seen what the toilets are like in an Ironman? If you've ever had to go in,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think the sports diaper would be a success in triathlon. You could sell that in the Ironman Expo. Like, it will help you get. If you're looking for sub 15 Ironman, this is what you need. If you're struggling to make the time cut, save 20 seconds on the sports diaper.
Don't ever feel vulnerable in publicity again. Anyway, yeah, that was the lows of this week. Shall we head over to Man Chattanooga?
We'll go to Chattanooga, yeah, shall we? So swim got cancelled, mate, and I was not gutted at all. Like, I was actually pretty pleased when I heard that noise. What would you be like if you heard that? You,
Celebration,
but you
pre-race
got screwed
celebration.
at Chattanooga. You got screwed in Cozumel, didn't you? With the swim got cancelled, and then they did it on the sea, didn't they? So you
Exactly.
got last.
exactly that. So in your case, they did like a lottery, didn't they? So they would put all the names in a hat and then pick names, and then
Yeah, you
right,
picked numbers. They did it at the briefing. So like you basically put your hand in the bag, picked a number, and that was your starting place.
which would
So
be the most fair way to do it.
yeah.
Whereas in Cozumel, they would say you're number one, so you're going to start as the first person. We'll get you 6 motorbikes, and anyway, let's talk about Chattanooga.
So yeah,
So
basically you
swim
picked
got
your.
cancelled, but you already knew it the day before.
Oh, we knew it like at least 2 days before. I think they decided to cancel it on Thursday or Friday, something like that. It
Hmm.
was a long while in advance. I basically stopped swimming there and then, like in the lead up to the race. I wasn't going to go swimming today, but there's no point now. At least I saved time, not having to worry about going to the pool. But the current would have been absolutely crazy if they'd done the swim. It would have been actually quite fun, like because I swam in it before we had a load of the rain, and it was hard just to get to the island. And then when you were swimming around this island, it took us ages. I mean, we averaged over 3 minutes per 100 meters, and I was swimming at
Whoa!
quite a hard effort. And then on the way back, it was like 55 seconds per 100 pace, and that would have been the way we would have swam in the race. And then we had loads of rain. The water level rose about a meter and a half, 2 meters. So it would have been flipping nuts. If you'd have overshot the swim exit, mate, that would have been it. God knows where you'd have ended up. You'd have just carried on going down the river. You weren't coming back. I reckon you could have laid on your back, mate, not done one stroke, just put your wetsuit on, laid on your back, enjoyed it as a lazy river, and you would have done 50 minutes for the swim.
But would you still be able to call it a triathlon?
Yeah, because you're in the water.
Is that how they would call the triathlon? Just you're in the water.
Yeah, you're in the water, aren't you? You're still swimming it, aren't you? You're just getting a bit of assistance. It's like a tailwind on the bike, isn't it?
Hmm. True. All right,
So
it got
yeah,
it got cancelled, so it's not a triathlon, but it's a World Championships duathlon.
and then I was starting 12, so I was 6 minutes behind the first person to start. And they did a big clock when you're down there at the race start, and it was like count from 8 o'clock. Basically, they started the first person, then 8 minutes 30, 1 minute past 8, and you could see it, and they count you down 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, you go.
The
And
intervals
I
were
actually
30 seconds.
30-second intervals, and so I had in front of me, I the next best cyclist I had, who would have potentially been worthwhile catching, was Michael Weiss. He was a minute in front of me, and then the dilemma I had was, do I go out really hard, try and catch him, and then we could work together on the bike, or do I just ride my own thing, see how the gap's going at the first turnaround, which is about 35k in, something like that, and then decide whether or not to push hard to catch him or just carry on doing my own thing. Because obviously I could go really hard for the first bit to try and catch him, but he could also be going really hard to try and stop me from catching him at the start. So,
Hmm.
and then you've just put a load of effort in for nothing. So that was the kind of dilemma. And then behind me, I had Adam Fay, who's a good cyclist, starting 30 seconds behind. And then Sam Long was like 6 minutes behind. So he was like too far to even like think, well, I'll
Yeah.
just cruise it at an easy pace. And then if he comes, then I'll work together. And then, we'll ride better together. We'll ride fast together and use less energy. Um, and then after him, there was Andreas Dreitz and Cody Beals, probably about roughly another 5 minutes behind Sam, which would have been good for us. But then the race in Augusta got cancelled because of Hurricane Helene, which is ultimately why our swim got cancelled, because it rained so much, the water levels were crazy, and they reckon they could have
Hmm.
been a bit polluted because of all the debris going into the water. So because that got cancelled, Jackson Laundry and a few of the guys that were in Augusta made the 4 hour drive up to Chattanooga to do the race as well. So Jackson Laundry is actually riding really, really well at the moment. So then they put those guys at the back of our field, and that helped people like Cody Beals and Andreas Dreitz, because Jackson ended up catching them for a few minutes. But then because as he was catching people, a pace line was kind of forming. And then it made those guys able to stay with him, because obviously you save a few watts, don't you? Every time someone else kind of hangs in there, it makes it like 5-10 watts easier. So if you get like 4 or 5 people, all of a sudden it became possible for those guys to hang in. So they ended up profiting off that. But that's just luck of the draw, to be honest. Like if he wasn't there, then they would have been like, it would have been a lot harder for him. And that's just it. The swings and roundabouts, isn't it? It could have been better to start at the front. Could have been better to
Hmm.
start at the back. It's whatever it is, what it is. But anyway, 25 minutes into the race, I'm riding on the front. I've caught a few people, I've just got my head down, cruising along, uh, riding at my own power. So I decided not to bother trying to catch Michael Weiss at the start. I thought I'm going to ride at 300 watts on my, which on this power meter for me would be a PB for an Ironman. So I thought I'll start off around that, just over that, which would be a really well-paced ride, and I'll see how it goes, and I'll just try and hold it. And if someone catches me from behind, then I'll try and work with them and use them for as long as we can. And then if they fade, then I'll hopefully ride away from them at the end. But I knew that if I held that power, I would have done a really good bike ride. Anyway, 25 minutes in, the marshal comes up to me and goes, blocking, penalty. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I looked at her and I said, what, me? And she said, yeah, you. Like, you're blocking, you're right on the left, you've got a penalty. And shows me a card. And I said, what the fuck have I got a penalty for? I'm like, I'm on the front. I haven't even seen anyone else. And she said, you've got a penalty, you need to stop. Anyway, like, she gives me a penalty, and I think it's total bullshit. Like, I'm literally on the front. I haven't seen anyone else behind me, just doing my own thing. And I was riding over to the left, but it was like wet roads, and I thought there was a decent amount of water on the right. But still, I think it's total bullshit, because if someone tries to overtake you, they just say on your left, and the person would normally move over. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, compared to how a load of the age groupers were riding, who were like literally putting you into like the gutter, it wasn't that bad. And we're literally 25 minutes in. So I get a penalty. So I have to stop after about 45 minutes, which is really annoying because on a fast bit of road. Adam had actually just caught me, which would have worked out really good for us because we could have then worked together and both shared the effort. We would have gone a bit faster and it would have saved a little bit of energy. So I then ended up having to stop for a minute, which then put me right behind him. And then obviously you lose more than a minute because we were going like 55 k's an hour. I have to pull in, come to a complete stop, tell them my number, tell them the card. Then they started the watch. Then after a minute, I was on my way. But by the time you get back up to speed, you've lost at least a minute and a half, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, carried on. Then it was pretty uneventful. I ended up catching them up in the end. But then my option of potentially riding with Michael Weiss was over because if Adam had caught me and we had kept the gap to Michael at 1 minute, then we could have said to each other, let's smash it. Let's try and bridge up to him. And then it will be a group of three of us. And, we could have it would have been pretty good position for him. But anyway, I ended up riding basically the whole thing by myself because I ended up catching Adam eventually back on. We did a couple of turns where we.
And what was the power in the end?
So in the end, I lapped it when I came off the highway, and it was on 292 watts. So even at the end, it still faded. So I knew 300 watts was going to be pretty tough, which I've dual recorded because I like to know how it compares to my old power meter that I was using to compare previous performances to. Because obviously, if it's different, then you can't compare 300 watts to this.
What was the speed?
44 point something kilometers an hour. So I think it was like 44.2, 44.3. That's including the whole thing. So on the highway, it would have been a bit quicker. It would have probably been like 44 and a half for 290
pretty
watts.
Good going, right? For
Yeah.
180k.
Yeah, that was pretty decent. And that would have been the equivalent of like 304 watts in the end because I was 289, including like taking it really easy to the end to start the run.
And what did the other guys ride up and around?
So the fastest bike split was Jackson, and he was, I think, 5 minutes faster than me, 5 minutes 20, which would have basically been, take away the penalty, I would have been about 4 minutes, something like that. 4.5 minutes, 4.5 minutes, 4 minutes to 4.5 minutes, something like that, 4 minutes, which is about right because, I hadn't been training for that long beforehand. So, and he got the fastest split. He just outrode Sam by about 20 seconds. Yeah, he's riding really well. And he did that off the same power as me as well. And Sam was had his best power output as well. So Sam averaged 325 watts. Like you can see that if you're on Strava, and 330 something normalized. So that was a really good ride by Sam. He reckons that was his best one. So a few of the guys were riding really well, but then ended up coming into transition when I did a complete change because I had like a bike time trial suit on. And then I put on like some other stuff to run on. So Sam overtook me in transition. And then for the first 10k, I was kind of like behind him, kept the gap the same. And then he started pulling away from me, I would say, when we hit the climbs, which were about 14 kilometers into the race. He started pulling away, and then that was it. I didn't really see him again. And then Cody Beals came past me. Andreas Dreitz, who I would have never thought would have outrun me, had his best run and ran under 240, which was
crazy.
That
is nuts because he had, I think, over the last 10 Ironmans, correct me if I'm wrong, he maybe pulled out of 8 because
Really?
he felt,
Has he
I don't
pulled
know,
out?
but he's pulled out of loads of Ironmans, like in Lanzarote here and there, because he felt rough, and then to be able to ride like that and run a sub 240 off the bike, that is for me a complete surprise. I
Well,
wouldn't
yeah,
have given him that.
I think that's the best run he's ever done. And that
Yeah,
run
exactly.
in Chattanooga is probably about 600 meters short if you look at
Hmm.
everyone's Strava. So a little bit, probably like 2 minutes or so. But then it's got 350 meters of climbing, so it's actually fairly hilly. So like, if you did a flat course, it would probably
Yeah,
be like not much different than the time you do if it was like no climbing. So he actually did a great run. Like, fair play to him. Like, he deserved that to get on the podium, and it was quite nice to see. And it was good to see Cody getting on the podium. Obviously, I'd like to as well, but like, I know Cody struggled as well. So a lot of those guys, well, to be honest, the whole podium has really struggled at full distance for quite a bit. I mean, Sam's been doing really good racing over the 70.3s, but not managed to execute it for the fulls.
hmm,
Cody and Andreas haven't really had the results that they would have hoped for the last period of time. So it was good to see some guys get some results that hadn't had them for a little while, and
he
they
did.
were like pumped.
Andy Dreitz did Lake Placid a year ago as well. So correct, correct. But I'm going to. He didn't DNF in like 8 races, but he did. He just blows up on a lot of the runs.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
last year he had 3 DNFs, and this year
I guess he's
one
like
then. But I just find it crazy. So normally he runs about 250 or 3 hours, where he's able to run fast. But then to be able to do like a 239 out of the blue, that is
I
nuts.
guess what you say is he's like a Kenyan marathon runner, where he's either going to go sub 205 or he's going to be walking to the hotel at 30 k's. He's like one
Exactly.
extreme or the other. It's like he doesn't race to finish;
Yeah.
he races to win.
Well, yeah, he does
So
really,
very
because
well.
if you look at in 2021, he did one full distance and he ran a 307. Then in 2022, he ran a 313 in one Ironman. What he did, he didn't do
That is
anything
like
else.
the mentality of get fit or get fucked, but race
2023,
mentality.
yeah. So he basically goes either all in and walks it home, or he's running a flipping 239. Well,
As
good
Fiddy
going.
would say, mate, get rich or die trying.
Yeah, good on the old bear. Do you know what I always find fascinating about this Andy Dreitz? Like, he doesn't have a single hair on his body, and his whole body shines. So I'm curious what his shaving routine is.
Laser treatment.
Do you reckon it's laser
Yeah,
treatment?
100%
Laser
laser. Yeah.
treatment and baby oil?
Laser treatment and shitloads of baby oil so you look good. Like,
He's always
and
crazy tanned,
he's
incredibly
always
smooth
ripped.
skin. Sorry?
Ripped as well. Absolutely ripped. He's like
Absolutely
Paul Rudd.
ripped, crazy smooth skin. And then, yeah, it must be the combination of baby oil, a lot of sun, and laser treatment.
And high testosterone for the hair because that's why he's got no hair on his head. But then actually saying that, you'd think he'd have a hairy chest if he had that, wouldn't you? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's definitely had laser treatment.
So he probably one day came into some laser clinic and they said something like, "What would you like? Something like would you like a bleach? Would you like a this or a that? You know, the traditional stuff. I would like to get laser over the whole body."
How
A
would
to
he say
Z.
that in German? Like, what would he
Huh?
say? Like, what would be the kind of way that, like, a
Den
German, like,
ganzen Körper bitte. Ja. Ja, nicht nur hier auf die Beine, nein, überall.
see, we're not just English on this podcast; we're multilingual. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll get if we could learn Spanish, we could get some more Spanish listeners because the Spanish hate us, don't they?
No, I wouldn't say they hate us. They just
They
don't
not.
understand us.
All right, the Germans don't really listen to us either, do they? So
No,
like,
but the Germans always stick with the Germans. So if you go to Germany and you put on the TV, it's all German TV. Whereas in the Netherlands, if you would turn on the TV, you would watch, for example, an English show, we would just put Dutch subtitles under it, but we wouldn't translate what they were saying. So if
oh
you go
really?
to if you would watch a James Bond show in Germany, then it would be Germans talking. So it looks like voiceovers, German voiceover.
I watched a crazy thing on Netflix I've been watching recently called Monsters or something. The little monsters, like, and it's about 2 kids. It's a bit off topic, but
But sometimes I'm wondering where your brain is going.
yeah,
Huh?
it's because I've got subtitles on it. I don't know why, because it's in English, but I still have subtitles on the bottom, so I can see what they're saying in case I miss it. But Yeah, and they kill their parents, mate. It's a nuts story based in
Oh,
LA.
is it about the Hernandez brothers or the
That's
what?
it, the Hernandez brothers. Yeah, the Menendez.
Menendez?
Yeah,
Yeah, something like
absolutely
that.
crazy. If you
Yeah.
guys have got Netflix, it's well worth a watch. Like, because I don't normally like the Netflix ones where they do it documentary style. Where they're like talking to people in an interview, and I like a reenactment of what happened, but dramatized, and that's what this is. So it's like they've made it into like a little series based on what happened. But oh my god,
Something
crazy!
like Pablo Escobar or Narco. Was it? What it? Narcos? What is it? What was it again?
Narcos, that's one. That's different than this one, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this isn't to do with drugs. This is just to do with
Yeah,
like,
I know, but like same style.
yeah, kind of, yeah, similar styles to that. Yeah, that's
All
that's.
right.
But yeah, that would be well worth a watch. Have you also checked? Have you seen the Ingebrigtsen documentary?
Nope.
Like, that's really good. That's a good one. I think you'd like that.
All right.
Six episodes, mate, on Amazon. Honestly, you should check that out. It's in their lead up, following them behind the scenes, and it gets really personal. It doesn't really show like the session so much. It's more about their like lifestyle and stuff, and how
Yeah.
they did it leading up to the Olympics. And you see the highs and
But
the
I would
lows.
say that's more interesting than the
It
sessions.
is,
I don't
yeah,
really care about the flipping sessions.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's why they've done it. And you
Yeah.
should. It's really interesting because there's three of them, the brothers, and they're all going through different bits. Like Jakob's going for the gold, isn't he? And everything's been going well.
Yeah.
Some of the older brothers have been battling injuries and stuff like that. And
And also because in his case, it's very specific because they're doing it with the family, isn't it? Isn't their dad the coach?
no, oh, the dad used to be. He's been arrested, mate, for like abuse.
Oh.
Yeah, he's not in it. And then so it comes to a heated bit in one point on it, the Norwegian champs, because the dad, who is basically been not anything to do with the family anymore. I don't know what happened, but he got arrested with something to do with abuse. Don't know the ins and outs, but he coaches his biggest Norwegian rival, and they end up
Oh.
going head to head in their hometown at the Norwegian champs prior to the Olympics.
That is
Yeah,
nuts,
that's,
isn't it? Don't you
and that
think?
and that kind of gets in in one of their brothers' like heads a
Yeah, but
bit
can you
before the race.
imagine that flipping race skipper abused you or someone or whatever, and then starting to coach me to beat you?
It's crazy, isn't it? It's
It is
nuts.
nuts.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. It's interesting. You should watch it. They're only 30-minute episodes, but if you've got 30 minutes free, if you're on the turbo, mate, and you're battling through, you can do Leon Chevalier, put it on erg mode, mate, and just watch a couple of episodes of an Amazon thing, and that will fly. That the time will fly by.
All right. So basically, if you're on a turbo now, you're doing a hard session. Then after you finish the podcast, you're gonna put on Chade Wildeburg, the festival. The link is in the description. Or if you're doing like an easy aerobic endurance ride, you can put on after the podcast, of course. What's it called? The Hernandez brothers, monsters,
The Menendez brothers, little
the Mendes
monsters.
brothers, or Jacob Ingebrigtsen. Um, okay. Do you want to say anything else about Chattanooga? Well, you like you were
Nah,
saying, you're just picking the race, hope to get a good result, but you haven't been training hard for it. And
what I
now,
would say
what you would
Yeah,
say?
what I would say is, well, I got into training. I did start training fairly hard, but I mean, what can you do in 3 weeks at the end of the day? But what I would say is, I felt great after the race, and I've actually like had a week off, and I've got back into training because there was no point me taking more time off. Like I had 3 or 4 weeks in July. I don't need to take any more time off. I feel fantastic, and I would have raced Langkawi. I really wanted to do another race, but it was just too tight a turnaround. It was 13 days and 12 time zones difference. It just was no point in doing that. So I'm basically building up for next year, and it was good to get a race in. And I would say, although
I,
the result wasn't better, like I would have got fifth had I not had that penalty. So that was a bit annoying because I was 50
mhm.
seconds off that. Oh, actually, I have got one little story from the race actually, which I'll say. But one thing I would say is, before I get to that, is it was good to feel decent in the race, and I did what I had. But the only way I'd have got a better result is if I was fitter. It wasn't like I had a bad race and got seventh. It was like I felt like I had a good race. It just wasn't fit enough to get a better position. But what I will say is, like coming into the last six, no, like 10K. So let me think. It was 17 miles, 16 miles. He came past me. So 10 miles. With 10 miles to go, Adam Fay came past me. Bearing in mind, I'd overtaken him on the bike and he started 30 seconds behind me. So in my head, when he catches me because of the handicap, I know, don't I, that I'm 30 seconds behind. And then
Mhm.
he pulls away a little bit and a little bit. And then it got to like 5K to go. And I timed him and he was 50 seconds because you're running down this hill. And I could see
Mhm.
when he turned the right turn. So I looked at my watch and I clocked him as 50 seconds ahead of me. But he was already 30 seconds up the road from that. So he was 1 minute 20. But I started feeling good. Like I smashed a load of caffeine and actually had like a second wind started coming. So I ended up closing it up. And I gradually started pulling it back. And then we got to about 2.5 kilometers away from the finish. And I was probably about 15 seconds, something like that, behind him. And I'm thinking, right, I've got 45 seconds to make up on him in like just over 2K, like to get another position. Can I do it? I thought in my head then, I was like, I'm not doing Langkawi anyway, so let's just fucking like try and send it for the last bit. So you run over this bridge, and when you run over the bridge, it's basically pretty much downhill to the finish. So with 900 meters to go, because I'd closed up to him with about a K to go, and then I remember kicking with about 900, and I managed to run the last 900 meters at 3 minute flat pace in the Ironman, like 3 minutes per kilometer pace, to try and like get that 30 seconds. And then it forced him to have to like react, and then he ended up having to run fast, even though he was like fucking dying and like on it, like falling apart, because I was catching him before that. And I managed to get 24 seconds back in 900 meters. So I missed it by 6 seconds. I got to the line and I was like giving it everything. I was like nailing it, knowing that I needed 30 seconds. And then when I got to the end, I was trying to look at the clocks, trying to see like, what's the time? And I saw him come in. I was like, oh, it's 5.5 seconds basically away from like getting that extra.
In an Ironman, 5 seconds. That's crazy, isn't it?
I know.
But I wanted to say, though, that it's dangerous to be sending it like that at the end of an Ironman, because that's how I hospitalized myself in Kona.
Yeah, yeah, but that was boiling hot, mate.
Yeah, I
And
know, but maybe
different.
people think like, all right, I'm gonna do this at my next Ironman and just like absolutely empty the tank and max it. In like extreme conditions, it is it can be very dangerous.
Yeah, you nearly got an expensive medical bill, didn't you, from Kona from that?
Well, it is that I had insurance, because I did
Yeah.
get the expensive medical
How
bill.
much would it have cost if you didn't have insurance? What would that have cost?
25,000 euros.
Fucking hell, 20.
Yeah.
Thank God you had insurance. Jesus, could you imagine?
Oh my God, absolutely nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right. Shall we quickly head over to the next subject?
Yeah, I've also got one interesting thing that I saw as well on the media, right? And that was that this Kenyan athlete, this Kenyan runner, right? She got done for drugs. She just recently failed a test. And she had ran a 28:57 10K. And what do you think her 10K PB was 16 months previous to that?
32:30.
33:50.
It's crazy what drugs
She
can
went
do.
from 33:50 to 28:57 in 16 months, and then got busted for EPO and steroids.
But that's the whole thing. Like I don't want to be, but there are just so many Kenyans and Ethiopians, etc., on doping, because it's their only way out to like get a good result, or some of them then get a good result, and for them it's the only way out to make a living and then get away from the
But it's the agents and stuff,
situation they're
isn't it?
in. So yeah, it's also
the agents
the agents, but there's like they've got these training squads where they've got 200, 300 Kenyans, whatever, running, and some of them have never done a competition, but just like training, and they're really fit. And then it's really hard to get bust. But just lately, if you look over the last couple of years, so many Kenyans, etc., have been busted, isn't it?
Did you see any of
They've
these
got
Kenyan?
nothing to lose. They've got
No,
nothing
they've
to
got
lose.
nothing. They've got nothing. Yeah, it's like, I mean, for them, it's just a way out of poverty. Did you
Yeah.
see them when you were in Kenya? Did you see the groups running like and stuff like that, or did you
No,
not see?
because I wasn't in. I was close, but I wasn't in Eton.
Oh,
But it's actually really sad. You know, it's really sad that they get forced into it, or that it should that they think this is my way out. I need to do this for my family, and it's just sad.
yeah. Well, it's
So
people
you
taking advantage of them. People are taking advantage. They're using them to make
like the
money.
managers.
Yeah.
That's why you should be feeling privileged, Joe, with your Techno on the bike and cruising around the park in Norwich. Privileged. We're privileged males. Shall we? You're laughing. You cannot take that for granted. Why are you laughing? Why do you
No,
think it's funny?
it's just making me laugh, mate. You're just making me laugh.
Yeah?
Yeah, privileged with Techno putting me in a hole to Wilderberg.
In the K-hole at Wildeburg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Techno's putting me in the K hole. Next time he puts me in the K hole, I'm going to think I'm on the side. I just imagine I'm like pouring with sweat. My t-shirt's gone. It's raining, and and I'm just sat down, nearly puking up, and I'm like, "You're privileged, Joe. Just remember, you're really lucky that you get to feel like this."
Well, also sometimes when you're a real hard training block and you feel like you've got no motivation, etc., etc., then I'm trying to think that it's also a privilege to be fit. That it's a privilege to bang flipping K reps at 315, 320K pace, or to be able to ride your bike hard or whatever, or to be able to have the time to do it at daylight because normal people who have a
Oh
job
yeah,
or
that is
don't.
definitely a massive bone boost, isn't it? Being able to do it in daylight during the winter, flipping heck, like
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right then.
So,
So we've got a choice. We can go into the bullshit buster or the main topic.
what's the bullshit buster? Give me a tease.
To do with Ironman Barcelona, age group cyclist.
And what's the other option?
About racing with your mates or racing against people that you're matey with.
Let's go with the bullshit buster first.
All right. So the bullshit buster is: are top age group cyclists better than pros?
Or age group triathletes,
Age group triathlete cyclists, are they better than pros on the bike? Like looking at the raw data, obviously the pros will bike faster. That is the only reason they're biking faster, because they're getting paced along, they're drafting, and there's motorbikes affecting it. But are the actual top age group triathlete cyclists better from a performance perspective? If you were to get them and you basically race them over 180 Ks, are the top age group cyclists better than a lot of the pros on the bike?
And how did you come to this clarification?
Well, it's not a conclusion; it's a discussion, mate.
No, I know
Like,
it's a discussion,
me
but
down, mate.
no, I'm trying to open up the discussion. Now,
So we've been
but-
Strava stalking, haven't we?
we've been scooping around on Strava, and there were like so Ironman Barcelona is a flat course like many other courses, and since 2019 or 2018, we've seen a spike in amount of pros participating in races, but we've also seen a spike in extremely fast times at a lot of races. A sub 7:30 wasn't thinkable 5 years ago, and now it's happening multiple times a year. Now, is that due to because people have got fitter, or has it been due to the current race dynamics? Now, Jody and I have been doing extensive research, not only about results from the same race in the past. Now, note, you can't always correct or you can't always check times to compare times from the past with races now. But in general, you would be able to say that up and around you could do that. Now, we have been looking at the race, for example, Ironman Barcelona. In 2019 or 2018, Jody, this is on top of my head, so correct me if I'm wrong. The top time, so you would end up in the top 4 if you do around 8 hours. I think the top 3 guys just went sub 8 hours, something like 7:55. And the other top guys, so the top 10, were all in between 8:20 and 7:55. So you would end up in the top 10 with an 8:20. Now, Ironman Barcelona last weekend, the whole top 20 was under 8 hours with a lot of people riding sub 45. Now, looking at the times, the big difference was only made on the bike. So everyone was riding around 4 hours on the bike. You could think then, have pros gotten more aero than athletes in the past?
Going on to that, what you say about you could think that pros have got more aero than the past. We've ran the data, haven't we, through my windsock, and it's overinflated CDAs. Like
overinflated CDAs, exactly. So there is a tool online. It's called My Windsock, and you can download files. So whoever we've been doing this already for a long time. So you're talking to the pros here. You can download a file.
Like us guys.
So what you can do is you can download a file. You can put it into My Windsock, and you can check what someone's CDA is, and it will do that using the weather data there, the speed and the power. And basically, with a lot of the pros, the data that came out is basically a CDA that is physically not possible unless you're
Well,
in like
very unrealistic that they're getting CDAs of 0.17, 0.18 in a triathlon, and sometimes
or
even,
lower, point
or
one
yeah,
four five.
or even lower. And it's basically bullshit. And also, we know that it's bullshit sometimes because we've compared certain athletes in multiple different races, and when they haven't had the motorbikes, their CDA, surprise, surprise, is well above zero point 0.2. So the only thing that makes them ride so much quicker for the power is a massively inflated CDA. Now, what can cause that? Either drafting, well, basically, it would have to be drafting of some sort, either another rider, a motorbike, a vehicle. All these factors can have a difference.
Could be anything, exactly. So
Could
what we
even
saw
be
at
weather
Ironman
conditions.
Barcelona is that there were multiple athletes riding up and around 4 hours, 2 minutes, 4 hours and 4 minutes of in between 235 and 255 watts, which is crazy low. That's something I would do on a steady ride on the weekend with my mates, like steady hard ride, zone 2 ride. Now we also saw in top age grouper, the fastest age group cyclist. So he was riding solo, 180k, and he had to use 285 watts to go 4 hours and 20 minutes, which means he lost 60 minutes on the bike standalone whilst putting out almost 40 watts and sometimes 50 watts more.
And roughly, if you say that, like, you would go, say, 10 watts would give you 2.5 to 3 minutes faster, it basically needed another 40 to 50 watts to go the same speed as them. So basically, he would have needed about 330 watts in his
To
current
do the
setup.
same effort, which would in some cases be almost 100 watts more than someone else. You could say, is he that on aero? Well, 100 extra watts, that is flipping nuts.
Yeah, it's just the numbers don't make sense. So we're looking at that and we're thinking there's loads of these age groupers that are actually putting decent numbers out and stuff. And we've obviously experienced a lot in the races. But my conclusions now are the top age groups cyclists are better than most of the pros on the bike from a performance power perspective. You know, we're just looking at the raw data. They're actually more powerful. And that the reasons that a lot of races are getting faster is because the bike is becoming less and less important. Triathlon, long distance triathlon now is no longer testing the bike like it used to. And you were able to get away with basically riding very low powers on the bike, sat in these packs. And the reasons the time's getting a lot quicker, unfortunately, is because you're not having to ride that hard like you would used to in an Ironman when there was lesser competitors and the races was maybe stricter and not as much interference in the races. So then people were running slower because they were having to do 112 miles hard themselves. Now you're getting off the bike, and like Tom says, for some athletes, it can be like they're just riding zone 2 power, and they get off the bike, and of course you can run sub 2.
You don't even need to use that. That's why all these athletes are complaining so now and then about tummy issues. If you ride 230 watts, 240 watts, you don't need that much carbs. If you take 100 grams an hour and you ride like that, that's why you're getting tummy issues.
Yeah, but you're not burning any carbs on the bike because you're riding like zone 2. You're just riding fat burning zone, and then you're taking 120 grams of carbs now and wonder why you need a shit. Like it's like,
because your body's not taking any of it.
Cooling in the stomach because you don't need to use it. Yeah.
And last thing I want to say about that. If you look at iconic races like Ironman Lanzarote, you don't see anything like this happening there because the course is so tough that it will test the athletes. You don't see it in like a Chattanooga because it's more hilly. You wouldn't see it in like a Bolton.
Time trial start in Chattanooga made it so everyone was having to ride the road.
And a time trial start. Whereas in, I would say, flat Ironman races, so potentially Ironman Hamburg, Texas, a Cozumel, a Barcelona, in combination with pro start list with 80 or 90 pros on the list, makes the race absolutely ridiculous. It's basically a swim and a run race with a 4 hour zone 2 ride in between, because the athletes nowadays, of course, with the exceptions here and there, don't have to ride that fast anymore. They'll just sit in a group of 20, don't do any work on the front, just sit in at 5-6 meters, ride 240 watts and just get pulled along.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Ironman New Zealand, I can't remember if it was 2020 or if it was 2 years before that. But no, it was 2 years before that, I remember, because I remember how the race panned out. And I ended up catching the lead group after about 45k. And then I sat in the pack in about 7. I tried a few times, like straight away, to get away. And I was like riding like hard, you know, like over 400 watts to try and like get off the front and then keeping on the gas. And I was like, well, this isn't working. It was flat. So I thought, well, I'll just wait until I get to the hilly part of the course, before you drop down into town where you have that long climb. And so I sat in, and I've got the power file. And bearing in mind, it took me 45 Ks of riding like 300 like watts to gain 2 minutes. When I was with them, I ended up having to average, I think, 190 to 220 watts in the group. And it was like getting so easy that I was getting a bit like twitchy, because you kind of doubt yourself, like, oh my God, has the pace slowed down loads because my power is so low? Is this actually, are we going to get caught from behind? And you start wondering all this stuff. But you look at the speed, and the speed's pretty good. But it was literally like 220 watts, mate, tops for the period.
Yeah, and that's why the importance of Race Ranger, and on top of that, a 20-meter draft zone, in my opinion, has become more important than ever to stick with the real essence of the sport. A triathlon where you need to fix your own tire because you need to do everything by yourself. That's the essence of the sport. True, 3 disciplines by yourself. That's not the case anymore. Like, the bike ride has become an absolute joke, and this age grouper must think something like, damn, I rode 285 watts, which Eric Cloud would say is a top pro cyclist, and it's very, very decent. And he would think, I've lost 15 minutes on the bike. Crazy. Still such a long way to go to. Sorry?
That's the chase pack. The fastest guys did 3:58, so we lost 20 minutes to him.
He lost 20 minutes doing like 285 watts, and you must think like, oh my God, the way to the top is still so long. Whereas, mate, don't worry. If you're like, if you can swim in between 50 and 54 minutes, that's where like the big pack would be. You don't need to ride at all.
The big pack was 48 minutes in this one.
48, 49. 48, yeah, but it was a quick swim, though, because I thought the fastest one did something like 43, 44.
45 for the fastest.
45, yeah.
Yeah, so it was quickish. It was quicker swim than probably a minute or two quicker than what you might normally
But nuts, absolutely nuts. And to me, it also takes away the spirit from triathlon.
Oh, it takes away the spirit totally, because it just becomes, it's not testing you over all 3. So basically, it just becomes a race of who
on
can
top
make
of that. On top of that, what the actual flipping heck is going on with Ironman Barcelona? Like, the bike ride was 175 Ks, the run was 41 Ks. I'm thinking, the bike ride is an out and back. Surely you can make it another K, right?
Same in Chattanooga, mate. Same in Chattanooga. The bike was short, like it was 174 K.
How the hell is that possible? Especially on an out and back.
No idea. Absolutely no idea. Crazy.
Like, it seems like they just want to have fast times, whereas. Yeah, I don't know. That's not an Ironman, in my opinion. It's not a full distance triathlon. You're missing something like, because standalone from the distance, you're 15 minutes quicker.
Yeah, no, totally. I think for the main subject, mate, we should go into that. Well, dogs go mental. For the other subject, we could go into it next week, because we're on an hour already, aren't we?
Yeah. So next week, what are we going to talk about?
About racing your mates and stuff like that.
Yeah. Alrighty, friends of the show. Now, Jody and I are going to tune out. We're going to relax. So hit that link in the description to be able to listen to that techno tune, because I'm really curious what the average listener of the Triathlon Mockery will think of that.
Yeah,
Jody,
I am as well.
I'll see you next week. I can hear, it's like a zoo in there with you. I can hear so many sounds. Like
animals, babies, everything. It's like, yeah.
Sounds like you've got work to do, Daddy.
Yeah.
All right. See you later.
Bye.